On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected. Peter Falk, the Emmy-winning actor best known for his role as the rumpled, yet razor-sharp Lieutenant Columbo, died on June 23, 2011, at the age of 83. His death was due to complications from Alzheimer's disease and pneumonia, a quiet end for a man whose greatest character left criminals trembling with a mere, "just one more thing." Falk's final years were marked not only by a decline in health, but by legal disputes regarding his guardianship. His second wife was appointed conservator amid disputes with his daughter. The situation reflected a broader concern in modern times: how society handles aging public figures, memory loss, and the legal battles that can accompany cognitive decline. Falk's death did not spark political upheaval or global mourning in the way a statesman or revolutionaries might, but it resonated deeply with generations of television viewers and film lovers. He was a figure of steady artistry, representing a time when character-driven performances were the soul of popular entertainment. The world he thrived in, 1970s and 80s prime-time television, was an era that valued nuance over spectacle. Falk's death, then, signaled more than just the loss of an actor. It represented the closing of a chapter in entertainment history, one rooted in craftsmanship, patience, and personality. The public reaction was immediate and heartfelt. Fans and fellow actors recalled not only his portrayal of Columbo, but also his performances in acclaimed films like A Woman Under the Influence, The Princess Bride, and Wim Wenders' Wings of Desire. Unlike many modern celebrities, Falk's legend grew quietly. His work transcended genre and generation, making his death feel like a final curtain on a certain kind of modest excellence. Falk's passing reminds us that greatness can be soft-spoken. It doesn't require constant reinvention or controversy to make a lasting impact. In remembering Falk, we remember a time when television detectives solved crimes not with guns, but with guile. In death, Falk was immortalized in murals, DVD collections, tribute articles, and documentaries, each medium a vessel of memory, capturing a man who never needed to raise his voice to command attention. Ultimately, Peter Falk's death invites us to reflect on mortality not as an end, but as a transformation, where legacy lives on through performance, affection, and the countless times audiences still hear that familiar voice ask, "Just one more thing?" Maureen O'Sullivan, the Irish-born actress best remembered for portraying Jane alongside Johnny Weissmuller's Tarzan in the classic 1930s and 40s film series, died on June 23, 1998, at the age of 87. Her death from complications following heart surgery marked the quiet end of a life that had once epitomized the golden age of Hollywood glamour and endurance. O'Sullivan passed away in Scottsdale, Arizona, having lived a long, eventful life that spanned silent films, classic studio system cinema, and the evolving roles of women in both film and society. O'Sullivan's death reflected the final chapters of a generation of early film stars whose careers helped shape American popular culture. Her career began in the 1930s, a time when Hollywood was not only an entertainment hub, but also a machine of moral influence, escapism, and carefully curated star personas. In a time when women in film were often relegated to secondary roles or romantic interests, O'Sullivan's Jane brought both softness and a quiet strength to the screen, portraying a character who could match Tarzan's wild world with dignity and intellect. While her death did not cause public upheaval, it did trigger a wave of reflection and nostalgia among classic film enthusiasts. As one of the last surviving stars from her era, Her passing underscored the vanishing legacy of early cinematic storytelling and studio-era discipline. She had worked alongside screen legends and contributed to a formative period in cinema, yet she maintained a low public profile later in life, never seeking the limelight that defined many of her contemporaries. O'Sullivan's legacy lives not only in the celluloid reels of Tarzan the Ape Man and The Thin Man, but also through her daughter, actress Mia Farrow, ensuring a generational bridge between old Hollywood and modern cinema. Her death symbolized a shift in the cultural memory of Hollywood, from living legends to treasured icons captured in black and white frames. Her remembrance is preserved through retrospectives, classic film screenings, and digital restorations. Maureen O'Sullivan represents how mortality eventually claims even the brightest stars, but through memory and media, we continue to resurrect their impact. In her passing, we are reminded of humanity's deep need to remember, to retell, and to reimagine, preserving not just a face or a performance, but the dreams of an age long past. Betty Shabazz, the widow of Malcolm X and a resilient figure in her own right, died on June 23, 1997, from injuries sustained in a fire set by her 12-year-old grandson. The tragic incident, which left her with third-degree burns over 80% of her body, unfolded in her Yonkers apartment and shocked a nation that had already borne witness to a cycle of violence within the legacy of the civil rights movement. Her death, while accidental and deeply personal, reflected the generational trauma left in the wake of racial injustice, political assassination, and fractured families. Betty's passing came more than 3 decades after the assassination of her husband, and her life had since been marked by a quiet but profound commitment to education, activism, and the preservation of Malcolm X's legacy. A registered nurse and later a professor, she had turned grief into purpose. Yet her death exposed painful realities, how the children and grandchildren of revolutionary figures often struggle under the weight of inherited legacies and societal pressures. The immediate aftermath of her death included national mourning and renewed focus on the challenges Black families continue to face in post-civil rights America. Tributes poured in, not only honoring her as Malcolm X's widow, but also as a formidable force in her own right. Her funeral drew figures from across the civil rights and political spectrum, signaling her importance beyond just symbolic relevance. Betty Shabbaz's death amplified her role in American memory as more than a tragic footnote. She became emblematic of quiet endurance, an individual who, though not always in the spotlight, bore witness to and helped shape transformative moments in 20th century history. Her death also brought to light the question of how society supports, or fails to support, the families of its most iconic figures, especially those who battled systemic oppression. We immortalize Betty Shabazz through documentaries, biographies, and her presence in works about Malcolm X. Institutions like Medgar Evers College, where she taught, carry her name and legacy forward. In remembering her, we confront the complex intersections of mortality, power, and historical memory. Betty Shabbaz's life and death urge us to consider how we treat those left behind by revolution, and how enduring change must also heal as much as it transforms. Betta St. John, an actress and singer whose luminous charm graced the silver screen during the golden age of Hollywood, passed away from natural causes on June 23, 2023, at the age of 93. Her death, peaceful and unmarked by scandal or tragedy, offered a quiet reflection on an era where grace, talent, and adaptability were key to enduring in the rapidly changing landscape of American entertainment. Born in 1929, St. John's career began early, performing with the Metropolitan Opera and later transitioning to film roles in the 1940s and 1950s. She became known for her performances in films like The Robe and Brigadoon, and though she never reached the iconic status of some of her contemporaries, Her career exemplified the professionalism and poise expected of actresses in mid-century Hollywood. Her eventual decision to step away from acting in the 1960s to focus on her family life mirrored the cultural values of her time, when many women were encouraged or expected to choose domesticity over public ambition. The circumstances of her passing, natural, in old age, and largely private, reflected not only a personal peace, but also the fading visibility of a generation of performers whose fame was built on elegance, not controversy. Unlike the explosive, violent deaths that often freeze stars in time, St. John's longevity allowed her to be remembered in full. A working actress, a devoted mother, and a symbol of Hollywood's transitional period between classic studio control and the coming storm of celebrity culture. Though her death didn't cause cultural shockwaves, it did prompt reflection within film history circles on the quiet contributions of actors like her, those who helped shape cinema's golden age through steady, skillful performances. In this way, her passing helped illuminate the often overlooked figures whose consistency provided the foundation upon which more flamboyant legends were built. The legacy of Betta St. John lives on in preserved film reels, fan retrospectives, and the quiet admiration of classic movie enthusiasts. Her death reminds us that not all legends burn out. Some gently fade, leaving behind a warm glow that continues to illuminate the cultural past. As with many such figures, we immortalize her through the revival of old films, retrospectives on classic Hollywood, and our ongoing fascination with the era she so gracefully inhabited. Magali Noel, a French-Turkish actress and singer, passed away from natural causes on June 23, 2015, at the age of 83. Her death marked the quiet conclusion of a vibrant and multifaceted career that had bridged cultures and genres across post-war European cinema. Though her name may not resonate as widely as others from her generation, Noel's work encapsulated the restless, experimental spirit of 20th-century European art and cinema, particularly through her collaborations with director Federico Fellini and her presence in the existential chanson scene of 1950s France. Born in Izmir, Turkey, in 1931, Noel moved to France as a child and became a muse of mid-century French culture. She rose to prominence not only through her provocative performances in films like La Dolce Vita and Amarcord, but also through her sultry voice in Boris Vian's infamous 1956 song Fais-moi mal, Johnny, which was banned from French radio due to its risque content. Her career reflected an era eager to challenge taboos and redefine femininity. Noel's bold artistic choices mirrored a broader cultural awakening in post-war Europe, particularly in the face of rigid societal norms and lingering wartime trauma. The naturalness of her death contrasted with the provocativeness of her life's work. There was no scandal, no sudden tragedy, just the quiet departure of a woman who had long stepped back from the spotlight. Yet her death offered critics and admirers a chance to reevaluate her influence, particularly as discussions of feminism, censorship, and artistic freedom resurfaced in the 2010s. Noel's passing reminded many of how trailblazers can be forgotten once their radicalism is absorbed into mainstream culture. In the immediate aftermath, tributes poured in from both the French cultural press and cinephiles around the world, recognizing her as an icon of liberated post-war art. Her legacy is preserved through her roles in films that continue to be studied and screened, and in her voice, captured in records that still echo with the daring spirit of a woman ahead of her time. Magali Noel's life and death highlight how cultural figures can challenge power not through politics, but through performance. We remember her in restored film prints, biographies, curated retrospectives, and playlists that celebrate her voice. Her death reminds us that while mortality is inevitable, the spirit of bold, transformative art can endure far beyond the final curtain. Sheldon Harnick, the celebrated American lyricist best known for his work on the musical Fiddler on the Roof, passed away from natural causes on June 23, 2023, at the age of 99. His long life spanned nearly a century of American theater, from the golden age of Broadway to the more experimental stages of the 21st century. Harnick's death marked not just the end of a life, but the closing of a chapter in theatrical history, one rooted in humanism, tradition, and the quiet resilience of storytelling through song. Born in 1924 in Chicago, Harnick's career blossomed during a time when Broadway was America's cultural heartbeat. His lyrics often explored universal themes: family, faith, displacement, and hope, without moralizing, offering emotional depth and complexity rarely seen in musical theater at the time. The timing of his passing, in an era where Broadway grapples with inclusivity and innovation, reminded many of the enduring power of simplicity and authenticity in storytelling. His death did not come as a shock, given his advanced age, but it still reverberated throughout the theater world. Tributes poured in from actors, playwrights, and directors who had been influenced by his thoughtful lyrics and elegant craftsmanship. The immediate consequence was a renewed public interest in his work. Revivals of Fiddler on the Roof gained fresh attention, and his lesser-known musicals were re-examined with new appreciation. His passing amplified his legend, positioning him not just as a lyricist, but as a custodian of Jewish-American cultural memory and a bridge between eras of theatrical expression. Harnick's legacy speaks to the values of his time: resilience in the face of change, reverence for tradition, and the power of art to unite fractured communities. In Fiddler, the story of Tevye navigating the tides of modernity against the backdrop of persecution resonated deeply with audiences in the 1960s, amid civil rights struggles and global upheaval. His work continues to echo in today's polarized world, reminding us that storytelling can offer solace, clarity, and sometimes necessary discomfort. We immortalize Sheldon Harnick, not only in cast recordings and revivals, but in every moment theater dares to be intimate and sincere. His lyrics live on, not just in theaters, but in classrooms, choirs, and communities that still ask, with quiet reverence, "If I were a rich man." Dick Van Patten, the affable American actor best remembered for his role as Tom Bradford in the hit television series 8 is Enough, died on June 23, 2015, at the age of 86, due to complications from diabetes. His passing was peaceful and natural, but it marked the end of an era defined by wholesome family entertainment and television's embrace of relatable, everyday heroes. Van Patten's career, which began in the 1930s as a child actor on Broadway, spanned more than 7 decades. Yet it was his portrayal of a kind, steady father in 8 is Enough, 1977 to 1981, that etched him into the hearts of American viewers. In an age grappling with post-Watergate disillusionment and shifting family dynamics, Van Patten's character offered a comforting ideal, a father who led not through dominance, but empathy. His death, though not politically charged or tragically sudden, offered a moment of quiet reflection on how television once mirrored America's aspirational domestic values. The immediate consequences of his death were subtle, yet heartfelt. Tributes flowed from co-stars and fans alike, not in outrage or sorrow, but in gratitude. His passing invited reflection on the golden age of network television, where family-centered narratives provided a shared cultural touchstone. While it didn't shift history's trajectory, Van Patten's death reminded audiences of the enduring value of kindness and humor in an entertainment landscape increasingly shaped by cynicism and spectacle. Van Patten also represented an archetype nearly extinct in today's media: the modest, dependable character actor who found fame not through controversy or sensationalism, but through consistency and approachability. His life and death speak to a period when stardom was often quiet, earned through years of steady work rather than viral fame. In remembering Dick Van Patten, we are reminded of mortality not as a dramatic curtain fall, but as a gentle fade-out. His legacy lives on in reruns, nostalgic retrospectives, and in the archetype of the caring father that continues to echo in family programming. Statues may not be raised, but his image endures in smiles shared between generations watching old episodes, and in the lasting ideal of television as a mirror of the better angels of American domestic life. Corinne Calvette, the French actress who graced Hollywood screens in the 1950s, passed away from a heart attack on June 23, 2001, at the age of 76. Her death was quiet, a natural end to a life once lit by the glamour of post-war cinema and shaped by the complexities of fame, identity, and reinvention. Though she did not die violently or under public scrutiny, her passing offers a window into the evolving dynamics of stardom and the often overlooked struggles of women in the golden age of Hollywood. Born in Paris, Calvette was initially trained in criminal law before being drawn to acting. Her striking beauty and strong French accent made her a popular choice for American films seeking exotic appeal during the post-World War II era. In films like Rope of Sand and My Friend Irma Goes West, she was cast as the archetypal foreign temptress, roles that reflected both the romanticism and the stereotyping of European women in mid-20th century American cinema. Her career, though filled with promise, was marked by tension between typecasting and her intellectual aspirations. By the time of her death, Calvette had long retreated from Hollywood's spotlight, focusing instead on metaphysical healing and writing. The limited public reaction to her passing revealed how quickly fame can fade, especially for women in an industry that often prizes youth over talent. Yet in retrospect, her death symbolized the quiet conclusion of a bygone Hollywood era, one where actresses often sacrificed their identity to fit the studio mold. Calvette's life story, filled with reinventions, legal battles, and an eventual return to introspection, embodies the challenges of female autonomy in a patriarchal system. Her death may not have caused shockwaves, but it invites reflection on the cost of survival in an industry built on illusion. It reminds us that mortality is not only a biological end, but a moment that distills a life's choices, compromises, and resilience. We remember Corinne Calvette not with monuments, but through digitized films, archived interviews, and the occasional retrospective. In her, we see a woman who navigated a complex era of transformation between war and peace, Europe and America, stardom and self. Her legacy is quieter than some, but no less meaningful, a reminder that even the most glittering careers are subject to time's unrelenting fade, and that memory, when revived with care, can restore dignity to forgotten lives.